Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 806, June the 9th, 2019, Sunday. Thank you so much for tuning in to this Sunday morning edition of TowerGate. Before I get started on the news of the day, remember that today is the day to get your vote in for Dumbass of the Week. Make sure you get your vote in the comment section on this video, and keep in mind, I typically go through and tally up the votes around somewhere between 8:30 and 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So try to get your vote in the comment section before, say no later than 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Otherwise, probably don't get your vote counted. So we don't want that to happen. So hopefully everybody gets their vote counted. Alrighty. Let's see. Let's start right here with the Archie declarations. Okay, so what are we talking about? The Archie declarations. First, what we need to know is that a federal judge has now ruled on two things. As you know, a couple of weeks ago, a judge ruled that the Comey memos and the Archie declarations had to be released, unredacted. Now, these are not the Comey memos that people think about. These are notes that Jim Comey took, the dishonorable, discredited former director of the Federal Bureau, if I'm with her. They're literally his talking point notes to himself, what many people call his cover your ass memos, where he literally goes through the entire so-called investigation, Trump-Russia investigation, and everything that followed, taking meticulous notes, citing names, dates, sources, activities that were going on. He literally cataloged the entire thing, the entire coup plot right there in note form. And then there was a FBI lawyer named David Archie who had declared many of these things to the judge because he also looked at the Comey stuff and made his own declarations based on Comey's memos. And so both these things were up to be released, to be ruled on by the judge. The judge says, yes, these things must be released. But then the government comes back and fights against that, refuses to do the releases, and comes back to the judge with more arguments for why certain things shouldn't be released. So now it looks like we do have a final ruling here, and the ruling is that all the Archie material must be released, which would be the description or what have you, the account of this FBI agent and his team's explanations of the Comey memos themselves. And also the judge has released certain parts of those Comey memos, about half of them to be released. So we're going to get about half of the original memos taken by Comey, literally the play-by-play of the coup, and then we're going to get all of the Archie declarations completely released, unredacted. So very, very good news there. We got, I'd say, about 75% of what we want there. Probably a lot to be learned. My guess is that John Durham has probably already seen this stuff, and it's already things he's already using in his investigation. So, but this is just for the general public release, possibly for the IG to use, maybe for William Barr, maybe for members of Congress will now be able to see this. And of course, this will eventually be released to the public as well. So I think that we have another victory here, not 100% victory, but a pretty good chunk of victory with the ruling by this judge on the Archie declarations and the Comey cover your ass memos. These are the memos I think that maybe DeGeneva was referring to a while back that were blocked. So it looks like this is all coming out, and that's very good. Some more bad news for Comey and the criminal conspirators. And Mr. Archie and his team. Well, here is something that's been going around the last 2 or 3 days. I can't confirm it. And that's why you're not seeing anybody really reporting on it like on Fox or anywhere like that. Everybody's sitting on it. Everybody is hearing about it, but no one has actually been able to confirm it. So I'll go ahead and tell you what I'm talking about. There's this rumor that's been going around for about 2 or 3 days that someone has learned that Durham has already identified the person who leaked the Trump-Kislyak phone call, and this individual was also involved in many other things, and that allegedly there are at least seven indictments for 7 different crimes already on the books, labeled on the books for this individual. They describe him as a deputy assistant director. And when you look at the people that could possibly be, and then you look at all the particulars of the description, most people have figured out at this point that the person that they're talking about would be Carl Gaddis. Carl Gaddis. So, just so you know about Carl Gaddis, he was, and this is why this is so important, he was the deputy assistant director and head of the FBI NSB. Now, most people have never heard of the FBI NSB for very good reason. They're one of the most secretive, compartmentalized branches of the FBI that deals in intelligence and counterintelligence. These are like the covert operators of the FBI. They're very similar to like CIA. It's like the CIA of the FBI. Very, very closely held. Everything that they do, you never really hear them even mentioned. Another thing about Mr. Gaddis, he was McCabe's, what they describe as right-hand man, or as many people described him, McCabe's wingman. The guy who McCabe delegated a lot of things to because he could do a lot of things from within the FBI NSB, the National Security Branch, that would not come under scrutiny by anyone else because it's all so secret. It's also important to note that the FBI NSB, National Security Branch, was one of the 6 agencies that was part of Mr. Potato Head's multi-agency task force. So they're one of those really secretive organizations within the FBI that was part of the Mr. Potato Head, John Brennan multi-agency task force, and that's why it's so important. And this is probably, remember, a couple days ago we had the story that, in fact yesterday, that Mr. Durham had discovered the multi-agency task force. He had discovered it and was digging in deep into it, which tells us a lot about Mr. Durham. He's pretty smart. Didn't take him long to get there. We've been talking about this for a very, very long time. A lot of people just seem to have not been able to figure it out. But Mr. Durham obviously sniffed it out in a relatively short period of time, and the fact that he's digging in there tells us that he's going to hit pay dirt. He is going to hit pay dirt, believe me, and that has to make Mr. Potato Head very nervous. Now, Mr. Gaddis resigned in the same week that 4 other high-level FBI and DOJ lawyers and activist high-level bureaucrats resigned in that same week, and it was the week, or it's like a week or two right after the Comey firing. So, and we know that once Rodenstein appointed Mueller, he pulled McCabe off of the Russia investigation, and of course that meant Gaddis would have been pulled out of the loop. So Gaddis would have been very nervous because now he's got McCabe has been pulled out of the mix. Well, McCabe was not just the guy who was implementing and working with Peter Van Strokenus on the coup, but he was also playing an important role in covering up the crimes they were committing. And Mr. Gaddis would have been the person who would have been committing a lot of those crimes on behalf of McCabe. So if McCabe gets paralyzed and pulled out of the mix and you're Gaddis, you have to be very nervous. You see people all around you, Mr. Carlin and others, resigning with no notice practically, just literally say, oh, woke up today and decided to resign. He did exactly the same thing, relatively no notice whatsoever. He went to work immediately after leaving to the, just as you would expect, he went right away to working for Ernst & Young, wouldn't you know it, right away working for the Democratic activist law firm Ernst & Young. And so Gaddis essentially resigned from the, officially his resignation became official in July of 2018, but he was essentially gone before that. So this is what's being rumored, that the first indictment that has already been apparently either sealed or has been made is against Carl Gaddis. It's going to be at least 7 separate indictments, one of them being he being the person who released the Flynn Kislyak conversation. So again, this has not been confirmed. This is still in sort of a rumor mill. But I thought you guys might like to know. You can dig into this on your own if you'd like. I'm waiting for John Solomon or Lee Smith or Paul Sperry or someone else to corroborate this who has good sources, and apparently nobody has done that. So I've been watching this for the last 3 days or so, and no one has really came out and seconded this. So it's just being reported on some sites that are fairly alternative, not sites you would just necessarily that I would use in my timeline, or on a video, one source or kind of a weak source or whatever, or people not naming the source. It's not sourced well enough to claim it as a known fact at this time, but it's certainly out there in the rumor mill, and it would make a lot of sense. Carl Gaddis may be the first to face heavy indictments. At least 7 is what's being rumored. We'll keep following this, and we'll see where it goes. Well, what do we have here? Mitwit. Willard Romney. Mitwit is a stupid nickname, but if your name was Willard, it's probably an improvement. And this is just what we always get out of Mitwit. He can't go more than a week without opening his pie hole and dropping some bullshit that's meant to just, do nothing more than antagonize Trump. And now he's saying he's not sure that he's going to endorse Trump in 2020. As if anybody gives a damn. Trump's still going to win Utah by a mile. And nobody else in the rest of the country likes Willard very much. Nobody really likes Willard very much. And no one really cares much about what he has to say. And the only reason that he gets a headline with a comment like this is because it's so rare. Because not many people, Republicans, feel good about going out and trashing the president. And the only reason that Willard, feels that he can get away with it is because he's pretty popular in Utah. And he knows no Democrat's going to beat him in Utah. So he takes advantage of this fact. But the truth is, no one across the country, the rest of the country, really cares very much about what Mitwit has to say in his constant criticisms of the president. The guy thinks he's the damn horse whisperer. He's not. He's just not. Maybe we could call Willard the ass whisperer. He's the ass whisperer. That's probably the best way to describe Mitwit. Willard. Nobody really cares about the ass whisperer. Now, we're learning again more from Judicial Watch, from those 218 documents that they got. Here we learn more about the deep corruption within the Rotten Reverend Clinton and her corrupt friends at the DOJ. So, the Rotten Reverend Clinton's lawyer, we learned from these documents from Judicial Watch, that her lawyer, David Kendall, had returned 2 hard drives to the DOJ for destruction. Prior to doing so, they deleted all data. And in doing so, he also instructed the DOJ, hey, you do not have the consent, you do not have our consent to search these drives because of attorney-client privilege. And of course, the DOJ obediently went along with Kendall. So what happened here was, the backstory to this is that at some point the DOJ, and this would have been in 2015 or 2016, I do believe, when this happened, the Department of Justice, and the State Department specifically, it was the State Department, actually, Department of Justice handling it because they're the legal arm, but it was the State Department realized that the Chinese had compromised 2 types of drives used by State Department systems, including the Rotten Reverend Clinton, who'd set up her own system who was getting material from these drives. Some of that material was being flowed on her computer, on her private server network, was being flowed from these State Department servers and was all being mixed together with all of her other stuff. So everyone who had these 2 drives had to return them to the DOJ so that they could be destroyed. And we assume that they would want to analyze them to see if there was any evidence that the Chinese had compromised anything on those drives. But when the Rotten Reverend Clinton had her lawyer send hers in for destruction, they basically beforehand had deleted a lot of stuff out of there told the State Department that that was just Hillary's personal stuff, but even though supposedly they took out all the personal stuff and there should be nothing left but work-related emails, they still told the DOJ, but you can't look at any of these drives because these belong to the Rotten Reverend, and we have attorney-client privilege because there's things in their communications between her and her legal counsel. Therefore, you can't look at it. And it wasn't like a request. It was like telling them, you are not going to look at these. Bullying, essentially bullying the State Department and the DOJ. And, of course, they complied obediently. Why? Fear. That's why. Whoever be the person who didn't comply with that, their name would be sent to the Rotten Reverend. And then the destruction of their life would begin. That's how it works. The Rotten Reverend Clinton rules by fear. Fear, intimidation, and retaliation. People, how does Hillary get away with everything? Well, fear and retaliation. Across the Clintons, you get burned. They destroy you, period. So a lot of people are asking the question, it's a very good question, how is it that Bruce Orr, and why is it that Bruce Orr got bonuses and promotions at the very same time he's being demoted? When you look at and these are not just small promotions and bonuses, these are not like a couple $1,000s like you get for a Christmas bonus or something like that. It's not just like a little promotion, a couple thousand more a year, a little slightly better position. No. These are large, 2 years, $42,000 worth of bonuses. And he makes over $200,000 a year. He was making over $200,000 a year at his latest job he was promoted to after being demoted. He got demoted while at the same time being promoted. Now, why would that happen? Well, the average person would look at this and go, what's he involved in? Well, we know what he was involved in. He was brought in to be the middleman between Confusion GPS and Christopher Steele and the FBI. Just another way of pipelining material in to the FBI from outside. So then he gets in trouble. Now all of a sudden he gets promoted and he's getting bonuses. It almost looks like somebody was trying to take care of him so that he didn't talk. Someone was trying to take care of Bruce Orr. And of course he and his wife did really, really well during the coup. Yes, they did. They cashed in and made out like bandits during the coup. They did pretty well. Someone has to try to answer some questions as to whether or not, see, it's a very fine line here. There may be some legitimate, it's hard to imagine, there are legitimate explanations for why a person who's being demoted is simultaneously being promoted, and why he's in fact getting bonuses, especially big ones, at such a critical and crucial time when he's under the radar and under the watchful eye of the Inspector General and possibly some sort of investigative outside counsel like Mr. Huber or Mr. Durham or someone else, and the Congress. It's almost like someone wanted to take care of Bruce. Take care of Bruce. And we know that Simpson, Bruce, and others who were interviewed seem awfully concerned about Nellie and trying to protect Nellie, his wife. Of course, now she's got a criminal referral against her. So there's the Orrs. There's a lot more to know about the Orrs. We know a lot now, but believe me, there's some more to learn about the Orrs. These people were a lot more involved in this than I think what we have previously known at this point. And I think as more comes out, we are going to learn that they played probably a bigger role. They weren't just like these passive people. It wasn't like Nellie was just brought in by a third party to do some research, and well, like Bruce Orr just haphazardly stumbled onto this thing and said, oh, will you pass this along? Oh, sure, I'll pass along. I don't want to look at anything. I'll just, it's innocent. I'm just passing some stuff for my wife to some folks here in the DOJ and the FBI. It's all, there's no big deal here. No. There's a lot more going on. This is very calculated. They were part of an operation. They never would have been taken into these people's confidence if they weren't knowingly involved in this effort. They weren't just outside people who were picked to take advantage of. These had to be people, they're too connected to the inside players. They had to be inside players themselves. I think more is going to come out about that. And that question needs to be answered because it looks an awful lot like someone was taking care of Bruce and Nellie to try to protect them so that they wouldn't be in a position where they may be feeling like they'd be forced to turn and start talking. Notwithstanding the fact that Bruce Orr's testimony was quite damaging to the FBI. But he really didn't have any choice because Horowitz had the conversations. It's not like he could go in there and lie. I mean, he probably did the best he could, but quite honestly, Horowitz had his conversations. So there was not really much room for him to wiggle. I do believe the Orrs will both be facing multiple criminal indictments as well. We have Mark Meadows going on Fox News saying that the FBI knew within 60 days after opening the Operation Crossfire Hurricane, within 60 days, even before the election, that Steele's material and Steele himself were not credible, and that Papadopoulos was innocent. They knew all of that before July 31st. So the idea that they're going to try to say that July 31st Operation Crossfire Hurricane was because of Papadopoulos and what they learned from Alexander Down the Hatch Downer is bullshit. There are documents that Meadows has seen and others that prove this simply is not true. Of course, we know it. We've covered it as well, and we haven't even seen the documents. It's just common sense. Just on the Page-Strzok test. I mean, they were the ones handling the damn thing. They're the ones that started the counterintelligence operation. If they're saying that it ain't there, then it ain't there. They'd know. And we have their texts. And we know it ain't there. Never was there. Even when Comey was fired and Mueller was brought in, Lisa Page, being testified under oath, said no, we really still hadn't proven that there was anything to the allegations that had been made. Yet Uncle Bob comes in and right away begins his investigation as if everything had been proven true, as if they had all this evidence when in fact they did not. They had nothing. We know that Peter Van Strokenis was reluctant to even be a part of it because he said there was no there. Guess he just wanted to hang out with Lisa. Yep. These people are in so much trouble, man. Woo! CNN, oh boy, CNN was forced to admit that Trump got everything he wanted in the Mexico trade standoff. Yes, that little Mexican standoff threatening to launch tariffs on them unless they started taking some action to stop the migrants from reaching our border. And Trump took them all the way up to the last day, and they finally capitulated, and now they've cut a deal, and they're now taking some action to try to mitigate the situation, not just our border with them, but at their southern border where the problem's happening. They've been arresting people who we've told them are part of these human trafficking groups, and so they're now being forced to take action to avoid being tariffed. Once again, President Trump wins. Not just Democrats here that look red in the face, a lot of Republicans, including Ted Cruz, looking red in the face because they don't know a play when they see one. Trump knew that he would never have to impose these tariffs because he knew Mexico could never take them and that they would be forced to do what he wanted them to do. It would never make it that far. But the weak-kneed Republicans just simply don't understand how to get things done. When you're dealing with these types of people, this is the type of ball you have to play. Trump knows this. He's a businessman. You cannot be a sissy in business. Only in Washington. Only in Washington. So Trump applies these same type of tactics, which are fairly hardball, but that's the way the world works. That's the way things get done. Trump plays a little hardball from time to time, and every time he does, he seems to win. And despite the fact that he does this over and over, we see how weak in the knees Republicans get. Everyone from Twitch McConnell to Cruz, many others, just simply don't get it. They simply do not get it. Creatures of the swamp. Bought off by the Chamber of Commerce, by the way. They probably understand it perfectly well, but they're the lock that the Chamber of Commerce has on people like McConnell is just, it's incredible, and we see example of it day after day. Well, in an effort to pull herself up from literally dead last place, sitting at zero, we have Kirsten Gillibrand attempting. She's literally, if you look at the list of Democratic candidates, she is literally the last one at the lot of that long list. There's like 25, 26 Democrats there. She's at the very bottom, riding high at 0%. So in an effort, I guess, to try and rescue her fledgling campaign, which is just about over at this point, should be, actually it is over technically speaking, she does a video of herself pulling a shift in a gay bar. Pulling a shift in a gay bar. Now, I'm not sure who she's trying to target, but I'm pretty sure that Booty Boy has pretty much got the gay vote locked up, don't you think? And if not, maybe Beto will pick up on that, because I'm pretty sure he's not, 100%, in the, So, a lot of these Democrats, you look at them, sitting there at 0, 1, 2, 3, 4%. I don't know why they're hanging around, but maybe they're just being told to hang around to try to hurt Bernie as long as they possibly can, which is all they're really doing. Eventually, Bernie's going to pick up whatever the bottom 10 probably have a total of, 15% or something like that. Eventually, those votes will flow back into Bernie, because they're not going to go to Biden. And the right Reverend Clinton is planning on throwing her hat in the ring after Biden has been destroyed. And, of course, he just recently destroyed himself in the general. Even if he wins the Democratic nomination, he's destroyed in the general for opposing the Hyde Amendment. So, hard to say how it's going to play out now, because we have to wait and see if the right Reverend Clinton is going to be indicted. I believe it's better than 50-50 she will be indicted. Whether that happens before or after November and the filing deadline, I don't know. But if she's not been indicted by the filing deadline, I do believe the right Reverend Clinton is going to throw her hat in the ring, and that will take care of Biden, who I believe will be down probably in low to mid double digits by that point, probably somewhere in 13-14% by then, if that, if he's still even in the race. So we'll keep watching that. We have Joe DeGeneva saying that Steele's information will be devastating to the Democratic Party. Of course, because, when you think about this, do you think that all those higher tier Democrats did not know what was going on? You think Nancy Pelosi didn't know what was going on? You think Mark Warner didn't know what was going on? You think that Harry Reid didn't know what was going on? Do you think a lot of these high-level Democrats... I think we're going to learn when we get to the bottom of this that a lot of high-level Democrats knew about the coup, knew about the Steele stuff, knew it was false, knew about the things that were going on, maybe not the specific details, names of programs, names of individuals, but they knew the general nature of what was being done at the time. I really, really believe that, and I think that is going to come out. It's going to hurt them. Christopher Steele's obviously, let's face it, Durham is not going over there and dealing with Steele based on what Steele wants to tell him. Durham doesn't need to play that game. He's holding the cards, not Steele. Durham's probably got enough data to charge Steele with a crime right now. He lied to the FBI. When you're acting as an informant for the FBI and you break your contract with the FBI or lie to them, that's a crime. Steele committed a crime. He's also could easily be tied to the larger conspiracy as well. And there's probably many crimes involved in that. Steele knows he's not playing with a strong hand. So I doubt if Durham, I'm sort of still saying, well, when we talk about certain things, I'm pretty sure Durham probably said, well, that's not going to work for us. We want to be able to ask you anything. But here's what we will do. We will give you some sort of immunity. And I believe that that's probably what Steele got, was immunity. I think he got some sort of immunity. And that based on that, they're going to ask him anything they want to ask him. And I think that means directly asking him about how deeply involved the Clintons were in this entire thing. Cody Shearer, Blumenthal, people around Clinton, and various other questions, I think, are going to come Steele's way. And I think he's going to be forced to tell the truth. He can't lie to Durham. So, DeGenev is right. It is going to be devastating to the Democratic Party, specifically the leadership in the Democratic Party. That's why they're going berserk, going crazy, and trying to fight so hard, because they know what's coming. There are a lot of very nervous people in Washington, D.C. tonight, especially once they heard that Steele was going to talk to Durham. They know what that means. They know that means probably immunity. They know that means Steele knows a lot of things. He can identify a lot of people on the political side. Maybe he doesn't know the internal workings of the FBI, the CIA, and all that stuff, although he will have information on these individuals. But what he does know is he came from the political side of things. And that's where he can do the most damage, and that is to the Democrats and to the Rotten Reverend and the people around her, who are all power players as well. So yes, there are a lot of people sweating bullets right now. Imagine if you're one of those people, if you're one of the criminal conspirators, and you know you got Barr in there now. Not Rodenstein, you got Barr. And you know he appears to be dead serious about getting to the bottom of it. Then he brings in Durham, who has a pretty good reputation for getting to the bottom of government corruption. They seem pretty serious. And now they're talking about, it appears that they've got some sort of an immunity agreement with Steele, and he knows where a lot of the bones are buried. If you're a criminal conspirator right now, you are really, really nervous. Probably not sleeping very well. Probably not sleeping very well at all, because you know what's coming, and it's probably like Chinese water torture. Knowing day in and day out, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, it's all that's on your mind. It's like, man, when's it coming down? I know it's coming down. When they're going to indict me? When they're going to come out? Are they going to SWAT raid me? Are they going to arrest me? Are they going to, how are they going to do it? When's it going to happen? What am I going to be charged with? What are they going to know? What am I going to say? Are there people ratting on me right now? Are there people cooperating against me right now? There's a lot of paranoia and a lot of discomfort going on with the deep state criminals right now who know their goose is cooked. Nothing they can do to stop it. And we have, of course, the Democrats now threatening to investigate Giuliani for meddling in Ukraine. Well, they're picking on the wrong guy here. The mob didn't. The Giuliani went after mobsters for like 20 years, and they threatened to kill him, tried to kill him. Also, you're not going to scare Giuliani, okay? At this point, you're not going to scare Giuliani. He's kind of crazy. Giuliani is kind of crazy. You're not going to scare him, especially a bunch of hapless Democrats. And the funny thing here is that Giuliani is not investigating anything in Ukraine. He does not have the ability to investigate. He's looking into things that are going on around an investigation in Ukraine that's being conducted by a prosecutor there. He's certainly focused on and paying attention to and trying to get information about what's going on in Ukraine, but he's not officially in a position to investigate anything in Ukraine. And they say he's like meddling there. Well, what he's looking into is the meddling that was done by the Democrats, the FBI, and the deep state in Ukraine to use that against Trump. Remember, Ukraine's a very important part of where the Russian narrative started. It was a very important part of how Manafort got fired and opened up the door to Manafort, which opened up the door to FISAs and everything else. It's an important part of this, and that's why they want to try to scare Giuliani away, but that is not going to work. If anything, it'll only make him more motivated to dig even deeper. And as I said earlier, Biden is not going to make it now. If you remember, a couple weeks before, Biden threw his hat in the ring when he was still dancing around trying to figure out what to do. I said, well, he can go ahead and jump in, and as soon as he does, yeah, he'll probably become the front runner. He'll probably have a decent lead, but that is as high as he will ever get. And from that day forward, he will only go down, 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 and he'll suffer a merciless beating day after day after day, because he's not going to move far enough left to appease the leftist. If he tries it, he'll lose the corporate backing, which means all the money. So then he has nothing, because he has no real support base. Ultimately, when you look at this large field of Democrats, you're going to come down with really one person representing the far left, and that'll be Bernie, because all those 20 or so people who are trying to be the Bernie are not going to be the Bernie. Ultimately, Bernie will be the Bernie, and when they're all gone, he's going to pick up all their numbers. So Bernie will eventually rise into the 40s, the mid-30s, maybe even low 40s. Biden will continue to fall. He's not going up. He's only going down. I don't think he can survive it. And even if he does, the fact that he came back and voted for, says he will support the Hyde Amendment, the federal funding of abortions, that even if he wins the Democratic primary, that will toast him in the general election. That's it. He cannot win the general election on that position. Federally funded, taxpayer-paid abortions. Not going to work. So there you go. Thank you so much for tuning in. Get your vote in for Dumbass of the Week, and I'll be back tomorrow with more TowerGate. Thanks. See ya. Bye.